Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Starbound, staring at the stars through the main window. The research vessel moved slowly through space, its engines humming quietly in the darkness. Jake had been doing this job for 12 years, but he still loved the peaceful silence of deep space. "Captain, we're getting a signal," said Communications Officer Ben Torres from his station. His voice was tense, which made Jake turn around quickly. "What kind of signal?" Jake asked, walking over to Ben's console. "Distress call from Kepler 442b, the mining colony there." Ben's fingers moved across his controls and the message played. Through the speakers, the voice was shaky and full of fear. "This is Colonial Administrator Helen Carter on Kepler 442b. We need immediate help. A Kithara has been spotted near our settlement. Repeat, we have a Kithara approaching our colony. All military ships are too far away. Anyone who can help us, please respond." Jake felt his blood go cold. The Kithara were the most feared creatures in the galaxy. Everyone knew the stories. 12 feet tall, covered in armor-like scales, with claws that could tear through metal. They had been destroying human colonies for 300 years. No one had ever survived a direct fight with one. "Set course for Kepler 442b maximum speed," Jake ordered, "and get the crew ready for emergency operations." Dr. Lisa Grant, the ship's medical officer, was already on the bridge. She was a small woman with gray hair, but she was the smartest person Jake had ever met. "Captain, are you sure about this?" "The Kithara have never been defeated. Every colony they visit gets completely destroyed." "I know the risks, Doctor," Jake said. "But we're the only ship close enough to help. Maybe we can buy them time to evacuate." Security Chief Ryan Cross joined them on the bridge. He was a big man with scars on his face from previous battles. "Captain, I've been checking our weapons. We have some pulse rifles and a few plasma cannons. But against a Kithara, they might as well be toys." Engineer Pete Williams came running onto the bridge, his uniform covered in grease. "Captain, I've pushed the engines as hard as they'll go. We'll reach the colony in 6 hours. "Good work, Pete," Jake said. "Now everyone listen carefully. We don't know what we're walking into. The Kithara are smart and dangerous. They study their enemies and learn from every battle. This one has probably been watching the colony for days." The journey to Kepler 442b felt like the longest 6 hours of Jake's life. The crew worked quietly, preparing for what might be their last mission. Lisa checked all the medical supplies. Ryan tested every weapon on the ship. Pete made sure the engines were running perfectly. When they finally arrived at the colony, Jake could see the damage through the ship's cameras. 3 defense towers lay in ruins, their metal twisted and broken. Smoke rose from several buildings. The Kithara had been busy. "Take us down to the landing pad," Jake ordered. "But be ready to leave fast if we need to." The Starbound landed with a soft thud. Through the windows, Jake could see people running everywhere. Families carried bags and children as they tried to get to the evacuation ships. But there weren't enough ships for everyone. Helen Carter met them at the landing pad. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and worried eyes. "Thank God you're here," she said. "Though I'm not sure what 4 people can do against that thing." "Tell us what happened," Jake said as they walked toward the colony's command center. "The creature showed up 3 days ago," Helen explained. "At first, it just watched us from the hills. Then yesterday, it started attacking our defenses. It's like nothing I've ever seen. It moves with purpose, like it's studying us." "Where is it now?" Ryan asked, his hand on his weapon. "Last we saw, it was about 2 miles north of here. It destroyed our main communication tower this morning. We've been trying to contact the military, but the nearest fleet is 4 days away." Jake looked at the colony around them. About 800 people lived here, including many families with children. The evacuation ships could maybe take half of them. The rest would have to wait for rescue ships that might never come. "We need to see this creature," Jake said. "Do you have any surveillance videos?" Helen led them to the command center, where several screens showed different parts of the colony. On one screen, they could see the Kithara in the distance. Jake had seen pictures before, but seeing one in person was different. The creature was massive, its dark scales shining in the sunlight. It moved like a predator, always alert, always dangerous. "Look at how it moves," Lisa said quietly. "It's not just attacking randomly, it's being strategic." The creature they were watching had been given a name by the colonists. They called it Shadowfang because of its dark color and razor-sharp teeth. It had destroyed the colony's defenses. One by one, always staying just out of range of their weapons. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "At its current pace, it'll reach the main settlement in about 6 hours, Helen said. "Maybe less if it decides to move faster." Jake made a decision. "That would change everything. We're going to try to slow it down. Give the evacuation more time." "Captain, that's suicide," Ryan said. "No human has ever fought a Cathara and lived to tell about it." "Maybe not," Jake said. "But we have to try. These people are counting on us." As they made their plans, none of them knew that a 7-year-old girl named Katie Barnes was playing in the colony's residential area. Her parents, Alex and Maria Barnes, were busy packing their belongings for the evacuation. Katie was supposed to stay close to them, but she was curious about all the excitement. She had heard the adults talking about the scary creature, but Katie wasn't afraid. She had always been different from other children. Animals seemed to like her, and she could sometimes tell what people were feeling just by looking at them. The sun was setting over. Kepler 442b when Jake and his team prepared to face the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. They had no idea that their real hope lay not in weapons or strategy, but in the innocent heart of a child who saw the world differently than everyone else. Shadowfang moved through the darkness, getting closer to the colony with each step. The creature had fought thousands of battles and had never known defeat. It feared nothing and no one, but soon it would meet someone who would change everything. The alarm sirens were getting louder across the colony. Jake Morrison and his team had spent the last 2 hours setting up their defense plan, but everyone knew it was hopeless. The Cathara called Shadowfang was moving closer, and their small weapons would barely scratch its armored skin. "All families to the evacuation ships now?" Helen Carter's voice echoed through the colony's speakers. "This is not a drill. Take only what you can carry." In the residential area, Alex Barnes was throwing clothes into a bag while his wife Maria gathered their important papers. They had lived on Kepler 442b for 5 years, and the small house was the only home their daughter Katie had ever known. "Katie, come here right now," Maria called. "We need to leave." But Katie was not in her room. She had been there just a few minutes ago, playing with her stuffed animals and asking why everyone was so scared. Alex ran through the house, checking every room. "Katie, where are you?" he shouted. Maria's face went pale. "She was just here. She said she wanted to see what was happening outside." They both ran out of the house, calling their daughter's name. Other families were rushing past them, carrying bags and small children. The evacuation ships were making loud noises as they prepared to take off. "Maybe she went to the playground," Alex said, but when they got there, it was empty. The swings moved back and forth in the wind, making an eerie sound. "Katie!" Maria screamed. "Katie, please come back." Meanwhile, Katie had indeed gone outside to see what was happening. She was a curious child, and all the excitement made her want to explore. She had walked away from the residential area, following a path she had never seen before. The path led to the old research facility on the edge of the colony. It had been closed for 2 years when the mining company ran out of money. The building was big and gray, with broken windows and doors that hung open. Most people avoided it because it looked scary, but Katie was not afraid. She walked through the main entrance, her small feet making soft sounds on the dusty floor. The hallways were dark, but some emergency lights still worked, casting strange shadows on the walls. The facility had once been used to study alien plants and animals. There were still old computers and strange machines in the laboratories. Glass containers lined the walls, most of them empty now, but some still held specimens that glowed with soft colors. Katie found herself in the main laboratory, a huge room with a high ceiling. Old equipment was scattered everywhere, and there were large tanks that had once held water and other liquids. She climbed onto a chair to look inside one of the tanks. Wow, she whispered. The tank had pretty lights at the bottom that changed colors. Back at the colony, Jake and his team were getting ready for their last stand. Ryan had set up their biggest gun on the roof of the command center. Pete had rigged some explosive devices that they hoped would slow down the Cathara. Lisa was preparing medical supplies, though she knew there might not be anyone left to treat. "Captain, we have a problem," Ben Torres said from his communication station. "The Barnes family is missing their daughter. 7-year-old Katie Barnes. They refused to evacuate without her." Jake felt his stomach drop. A missing child was the last thing they needed right now. "How long has she been gone?" "About an hour," Ben replied. "Her parents are searching the residential area, but they haven't found her." "We don't have time for this," Ryan said. "The creature will be here soon. We need to focus on the defense." But Jake was already moving. "Pete, take 2 men and help search for the girl. Check every building in the residential area. Ryan, you stay here and watch for the Cathara." "Captain, we can't split up now," Ryan protested. "We're not leaving a child behind," Jake said firmly. "That's not who we are." As the search began, Shadowfang was getting closer to the colony. The massive creature moved through the darkness like a living nightmare. Its red eyes glowed in the dark, and its claws left deep marks in the ground with each step. The Cathara had been tracking human scents all day. It could smell their fear, their panic, their desperation. These emotions made the hunt more exciting. The creature had destroyed hundreds of human settlements, and this one would be no different, but as Shadowfang approached the colony's outer buildings, it caught a different scent. This smell was not filled with fear. It was curious, innocent, and strangely calm. The creature's head turned toward the old research facility. Inside the facility, Katie had found a room full of old books and computers. She was looking at pictures of strange alien animals when she heard a loud crash outside. The building shook and dust fell from the ceiling. Katie walked to a broken window and looked out. In the moonlight, she could see something moving toward the building. It was big and dark with glowing red eyes. She had never seen anything like it before. Most children would have screamed and run away. But Katie was different. She felt something strange when she looked at the creature. Under all that scary appearance, she sensed something else. Pain, loneliness, confusion. The creature smashed through the facility's outer wall like it was made of paper. Metal and concrete flew everywhere as Shadowfang entered the building. Its massive claws scraped against the floor, making a sound like fingernails on SCHALKBOARD. Katie could hear the creature moving through the hallways. Getting closer to her location? She wasn't afraid, but she was curious. Why did this scary monster feel so sad? Back at the colony, Alex and Maria Barnes were becoming more desperate. They had searched every house, every building, every hiding place they could think of. Their daughter was nowhere to be found. "The evacuation ships are leaving in 10 minutes, Helen Carter told them. "You have to get on board now." "We're not leaving without Katie," Maria said, tears streaming down her face. "Ma'am, I understand, but if you stay here, you'll all die," Helen said gently. "The creature will be here soon." Jake received the update on his radio. The girl was still missing, and the Cathara was less than a mile away. He had to make an impossible choice. Save the people they could, or risk everyone's lives looking for one lost child. "Captain," Ryan called from the roof, "I can see it. The creature is heading straight for the old research facility." Jake felt his blood turn to ice. The research facility was exactly where a curious child might go to explore. He grabbed his weapon and started running toward the abandoned building. "Where are you going?" Lisa shouted after him. "To find Katie Barnes," Jake called back. "And pray we're not too late." The final confrontation was about to begin, but not where anyone expected. In the dark, empty halls of the research facility, a 7-year-old girl was about to meet the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. And neither of them knew that this meeting would change everything. Shadowfang moved through the dark hallways of the research facility like a hunter tracking its prey. The creature's massive claws clicked against the floor with each step. Its red eyes glowed in the darkness, searching for the source of that Strange, fearless scent. Katie stood in the main laboratory, still looking at the pictures of alien animals in an old book. She could hear the creature getting closer, but she was not afraid. Something deep inside her told her that this monster was not really a monster at all. The wall next to her suddenly exploded inward. Chunks of concrete and twisted metal flew across the room. Through the dust and debris, Shadowfang emerged. The creature was even bigger than Katie had imagined. Its head nearly touched the ceiling, and its dark scales reflected the emergency lights like black mirrors. For a moment, they just looked at each other. The most feared predator in the galaxy and a 7-year-old human girl. Shadowfang's eyes blazed with hunger and rage. Its mouth opened, showing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Saliva dripped from its jaws as it prepared to strike. Katie looked directly into those burning red eyes. She saw the anger and the violence, but underneath it all, she saw something else. Something that made her heart hurt. The creature was in pain. It was confused. It was lost. "Stay," Katie said quietly, holding up her small hand. The word came out with a strange power that even Katie did not understand. It was not loud, but it seemed to fill the entire room. The sound carried weight like the voice of someone much older and wiser. Shadowfang froze. Its massive claws stopped just inches from Katie's face. The creature's entire body began to shake, as if it was fighting against some invisible force. Its red eyes flickered with confusion. "Stay," Katie said again, this time even more gently. The Kithara's muscles tensed and relaxed over and over. Its head moved back and forth like it was trying to shake off something that was holding it. A low growling sound came from its throat, but it was not the growl of an attacker. It was the sound of something in terrible pain. Outside the facility, Jake Morrison was running as fast as he could. He had his weapon ready, but he knew it would be useless against a Kithara. Behind him, Dr. Lisa Grant, Ryan Cross, and Pete Williams were trying to keep up. "The building is just ahead," Jake shouted over his shoulder. "Stay close and be ready for anything." When they reached the facility, they could see the hole that Shadowfang had made in the wall. The edges were still smoking from the creature's claws. Ryan raised his weapon, but Jake held up a hand to stop him. "Listen," Jake whispered. From inside the building, they could hear voices. One was the deep, rumbling growl of the Kithara, but the other voice was small and calm. It was a child's voice, and it was not screaming. "That's impossible," Lisa whispered. "No one can survive being that close to a Kithara." They moved carefully through the hole in the wall. The hallways were dark and filled with debris. They followed the sounds deeper into the facility, their hearts pounding with each step. In the main laboratory, something amazing was happening. Katie had stepped closer to the frozen Kithara, and she was talking to it like it was a frightened animal. "You're scared," she said softly. "I can feel it. You don't want to hurt people. Someone made you do bad things." Shadowfang's red eyes began to change. The blazing anger was fading, replaced by something that looked almost like confusion. The creature's massive head tilted slightly, as if it was trying to understand what Katie was saying. "You used to be different," Katie continued. "You used to be kind. You used to protect people instead of hurting them." The words seemed to hit the creature like physical blows. Shadowfang's body shuddered, and for the first time in centuries, the Kithara made a sound that was not a growl or a roar. It was almost like a whimper. Jake and his team reached the laboratory just in time to see this incredible scene. The most dangerous creature in the galaxy was standing perfectly still while a small girl talked to it. Jake had seen many impossible things in his years in space, but nothing like this. "Don't move," Jake whispered to his team. "Don't make any sudden movements." Dr. Lisa Grant was already pulling out her medical scanner. The device was designed to read brain activity and neural patterns. What she saw on the screen made her gasp. "Captain," she whispered, "you need to see this. The creature's brain patterns are changing, and Katie's neural activity is off the charts." On the scanner, they could see waves of energy flowing between the girl and the Kithara. It was like they were communicating on a level that no human had ever seen before. Katie placed her small hand on one of Shadowfang's massive claws. The creature did not pull away. Instead, it seemed to relax slightly, as if her touch was somehow comforting. "I can see your memories," Katie said, her voice filled with sadness. "They hurt you. They put bad things in your head. But you remember being good. You remember protecting little ones like me?" Shadowfang's eyes were no longer red. They were changing to a deep blue color that seemed much more gentle. The creature's breathing slowed, and its aggressive posture began to soften. "They took away your real name," Katie continued. "But I can still see it. Your name is Styros. You were a guardian. You were supposed to keep children safe." At the sound of its true name, the creature's transformation accelerated. The artificial rage that had driven it for so long was cracking like a shell. Underneath, something ancient and noble was beginning to emerge. Ryan Cross could not believe what he was seeing. "Captain, this goes against everything we know about the Cathara. They're supposed to be mindless killing machines." "Maybe that's what someone wanted us to think," Jake said quietly. Pete Williams was checking the facility's old equipment. Many of the machines were still running, powered by backup generators. "Captain, these scanners are recording everything. The energy readings are unlike anything I've ever seen." Dr. Grant was studying her medical scanner with growing excitement. "This is incredible. The creature's brain patterns are becoming more organized. It's like someone was scrambling its thoughts, and now they're clearing up." Katie was still talking to the creature she now called Theros. "You don't have to hurt people anymore. You can choose to be good again. You can remember who you really are." The transformation was not complete, but it was clearly happening. The monster that had destroyed countless colonies was becoming something else. Something that had been hidden for a very long time. Jake realized they were witnessing the most important discovery in galactic history. But he also knew that Katie was taking a terrible risk. The connection between her and the creature was growing stronger with each passing moment. "Lisa," he whispered, "is this safe for Katie?" Dr. Grant looked at her readings and shook her head. "I don't know. But whatever is happening, it's changing both of them." The connection between Katie and Thyros was getting stronger with each passing minute. Dr. Lisa Grant watched her scanner with growing concern as the energy readings between them continued to climb. "Captain, this is dangerous," she whispered. To Jake, Katie's neural activity is reaching levels that could damage her brain, but Katie seemed unaware of any danger. She was completely focused on the massive creature in front of her. Her small hand was still touching one of Tyros's claws, and she could feel memories flowing into her mind. Memories that did not belong to her. "I can see your home," Katie said softly. It was beautiful. There were purple trees and 2 suns in the sky. You lived with your family in a big cave near a waterfall. Thyros made a low rumbling sound that was almost like a purr. The creature's blue eyes were fixed on Katie, and for the first time in centuries, they showed kindness instead of rage. "You had children of your own," Katie continued. "Little ones that looked like you. You taught them how to climb and how to hunt for food. You were a good father." The memories were becoming clearer. Now, through Katie's connection, Thyros was remembering things that had been locked away for so long. He could see his mate, Scylla, and their 3 younglings playing in the crystal pools near their home. He remembered the joy of watching them grow and learn, but then the memories turned dark. Katie gasped as she saw what had happened to Thyros' world. Ships had come from the sky, ships that were black and silent. Strange beings had emerged from these ships, beings that Katie could not see clearly, as if they were always hidden in shadows. "They took you away," Katie whispered, tears starting to form in her eyes. "They took you from your family." "They hurt you." The shadow beings had captured Thyros and many others like him. They had taken them to a place that was cold and full of machines. There they had done terrible things to their minds. They had put metal devices inside their heads, devices that made them forget who they were. "They made you angry," Katie said, her voice breaking. "They made you forget how to love. They turned you into a weapon." Dr. Grant was recording everything on her scanner. What she was seeing was impossible according to all current science. The neural patterns between Katie and Theros showed that They were sharing memories and emotions in real time. "Captain," she said quietly, "I think Katie is somehow disrupting the creature's neural implants." "The artificial conditioning is breaking down?" Jake nodded, but he was worried about something else. "How is this affecting Katie? Can she handle this kind of mental connection?" Before Dr. Grant could answer, Katie suddenly cried out in pain. She grabbed her head with both hands, but she did not let go of Tharos's claw. "Katie!" Jake started to move forward, but Tharos immediately turned to look at him. The creature's eyes flashed with protective instinct. "It's okay," Katie said, though her voice was weak. "He won't hurt you. He's protecting me now." The pain Katie was feeling was not just her own. She was experiencing Tharos's memories of torture and conditioning. She could feel the agony of having his mind torn apart and rebuilt. She could feel the confusion of being forced to attack innocent people while his true self screamed silently. "Inside, they did this to all of your people," Katie said, her voice filled with horror. "All the Cathara used to be like you. They were good. They were protectors. But the shadow people turned them into monsters." This revelation hit Jake and his team like a physical blow. For 3 centuries, humanity had been fighting what they thought were natural predators. But the truth was far more sinister. The Cathara were victims, not villains. Who are these shadow people? Ryan Cross asked, though he kept his weapon lowered. Katie shook her head. "I can't see them clearly. They hide themselves somehow, but they're still out there. They're still controlling the other Cathara." Pete Williams was examining the facilities, old equipment more carefully. "Captain, these machines were designed to study alien neural patterns. Maybe that's why Katie's ability is so strong here. The equipment might be amplifying her natural talents." Dr. Grant was beginning to understand what was happening. Katie has a rare genetic mutation. It allows her to form empathic connections with other species. In this facility, surrounded by neural enhancement equipment, her ability is being boosted, far beyond normal levels. But the connection was taking its toll on Katie. She was getting paler, and her breathing was becoming shallow. The effort of breaking through centuries of mental conditioning was exhausting her. Thyros seemed to sense Katie's distress. The massive creature lowered his head until it was level with hers. His blue eyes showed deep concern. "You're hurting." "Because of me," Thyros said in a voice like distant thunder. It was the first time he had spoken in his true voice for hundreds of years. "I should break this connection." "I should let you go?" Katie looked up at him with determination. "No, if I stop now, you'll go back to being Shadowfang. You'll forget who you really are. I won't let that happen." "But you're dying," Thyros said, his voice filled with anguish. "I cannot let a youngling suffer because of me." Jake realized they were facing an impossible situation. Katie was the key to freeing the Cathara from their mental prison, but the effort might kill her. They had to find another way. "Pete," he said urgently, "can you figure out how this equipment works? Maybe we can find a way to help Katie without putting her in so much danger." Pete was already working on it. He had found the facility's main computer system and was trying to understand how the neural enhancement machines operated. The technology was old but sophisticated. "I'm getting somewhere," Pete said. "This equipment was designed to study alien brain patterns. If I can adjust it properly, it might be able to support Katie's connection without draining her energy." Dr. Grant was monitoring Katie's vital signs. "We need to hurry. Her heart rate is becoming irregular." Katie could feel herself getting weaker, but she could also feel Thyros's true personality becoming stronger. The artificial conditioning was cracking like ice in the spring. Soon it would shatter completely. "I can see more now," Katie whispered. "The shadow people have a base somewhere. They're making more weapons. They're planning something big." "What kind of weapons?" Jake asked. "Not just Cathara," Katie said, her voice barely audible. "They're taking other species too. They're building an army of controlled minds." This information changed everything. The galaxy was not just facing scattered Cathara attacks. There was an organized enemy behind it all, an enemy that had been operating in secret for centuries. Pharaohs made a decision that would change both their lives. Little one, he said gently, you have given me back my soul. Now I must give you something in return. The creature placed one massive claw very gently on Katie's forehead. Suddenly, the connection between them stabilized. Instead of Katie carrying all the burden of breaking his conditioning, Theros was now sharing the load. What are you doing? Katie asked, though she already felt better. I am remembering how to be a guardian, Theros said. A guardian protects those who cannot protect themselves, even if it costs him everything. When Theros shared the burden of their connection, something wonderful and terrible happened at the same time. Katie felt stronger, but she also felt more of Theros' pain and memories. The massive creature was taking on some of her exhaustion, but he was also opening his mind completely to hers. I can see everything now, Katie whispered, her eyes wide with wonder and horror. All the things they did to you. All the battles you were forced to fight. Dr. Lisa Grant watched her scanner in amazement. The neural connection between Katie and Theros had become perfectly balanced. Both of their brain patterns were stabilizing, but they were also changing in ways she had never seen before. Captain, she said urgently, Katie's genetic mutation is evolving. The connection with Theros is making her abilities stronger, but it's also making her different. Jake Morrison moved closer, keeping his weapon ready but pointed down. Different. How? She's developing neural pathways that shouldn't exist in humans, Dr. Grant explained. It's like she's becoming a bridge between species. Katie could feel the changes happening inside her mind. She could suddenly understand things about the galaxy that no human had ever known. She could sense other Cathara across space, all of them trapped in the same artificial rage that had once controlled Theros. There are thousands of them, Katie said, her voice filled with sadness. Thousands of Cathara scattered across the galaxy, all of them forced to attack innocent people. They're all suffering just like Theros was. Theros' blue eyes grew dark with anger, but it was not the mindless rage of before. This was the righteous anger of a father whose children had been harmed. The Shadow People must pay for what they have done, Theros growled. They have turned my people into weapons of destruction. They have made us into the thing we hate most. Pete Williams had been working frantically with the facility's old equipment. Captain, I think I've figured out how this neural enhancement system works. The Shadow People must have used similar technology to control the Cathara minds. Can you reverse it? Jake asked. Maybe, Pete said. But we would need to get close to other Cathara. And we would need Katie to make the connection. Katie nodded weakly. I can do it. I can feel them out there. They're all crying inside, trying to remember who they used to be. But Dr. Grant was concerned about something else. Katie, your parents are still looking for you. They're terrified. We need to get you back to them. Not yet, Katie said firmly. Theros needs to remember more. There are things about the Shadow People that we need to know. She closed her eyes and dove deeper into Theros' memories. The creature allowed her to see things that were too painful for him to remember alone. Together they explored the dark, places where his conditioning had been built. Katie saw the Shadow People more clearly now. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and black eyes. They moved without making sound, and they spoke without moving their lips. Their technology was far more advanced than anything humans or Cathara had ever built. They come from outside our galaxy, Katie said, her voice distant. They've been traveling from world to world for thousands of years. They take the strongest creatures from each planet and turn them into soldiers. Why? Ryan Cross asked. What are they trying to accomplish? Katie and Theros shared the memory of something terrible. In the deepest part of Theros' mind, they found the Shadow People's true purpose. They're preparing for war, Katie said, her voice barely a whisper. Not just against humans or Cathara. Against everyone. They want to control the entire galaxy. The Shadow People had been building their army for millennia. They had taken the Cathara because they were natural protectors, making them perfect weapons when their minds were twisted. But the Cathara were just the beginning. They have other creatures too, Katie continued. Flying ones from the cloud worlds. Swimming ones from the water planets. Each species has been turned into a different kind of weapon. Jake felt his blood run cold. Humanity had been fighting just one small part of a much larger threat. The scattered Cathara attacks were not random violence. They were part of a coordinated plan. How long do we have? He asked. Katie and Theros searched the memories together. Not long, Katie said. The Shadow People are almost ready to begin their final attack. They're gathering all their controlled armies in one place. Where? Dr. Grant asked. I can't see it clearly, Katie said, frustrated. But it's somewhere in the dark space between galaxies. A place where no light can reach. Thyros spoke in his deep, rumbling voice. I remember the journey there. Many rotations in the cold ships. The Shadow People called it the gathering point. Pete looked up from his work with the equipment. If we could find this gathering point, maybe we could free all the controlled creatures at once. But we would need an army of our own. No, Katie said suddenly. That's not the right way. Fighting them with violence is what they expect. It's what they want. She had discovered something in Thyros's memories that gave her hope. When the Shadow People had first tried to condition him, there had been moments when their control had failed. These failures always happened when Thyros remembered love and protection. The Shadow People can't control love, Katie explained. They don't understand it. That's why they have to use machines and torture to change minds. They can't just make someone stop caring. Dr. Grant was recording everything on her scanner. Katie, you're saying that emotional connections can break their conditioning? Yes, Katie said, looking at Thyros with affection. That's why I could reach him. I wasn't trying to fight the Shadow People's control. I was just showing him that someone cared about him. This revelation changed everything. The key to defeating the Shadow People was not bigger weapons or stronger ships. It was compassion and understanding, but Katie was paying a price for these discoveries. The deeper she went into Thyros' memories, the more the connection changed her. She was becoming something new, something that had never existed before. Katie, Thyros said gently, you should stop now. If you continue, you will not be fully human anymore. Katie looked at him with eyes that were beginning to glow with a soft blue light, just like his. Maybe that's okay, she said. Maybe the galaxy needs someone who can understand both humans and Cathara. Dr. Grant checked her scanner again. Katie's brain patterns were unlike anything in the medical databases. She was developing abilities that no human had ever possessed. Captain, she whispered. Katie is becoming something unprecedented. She might be the key to saving not just the Cathara, but every species in the galaxy. Jake realized they were witnessing the birth of something extraordinary. Katie was becoming a bridge between all the different forms of life in the galaxy. But he was also worried about what this would cost her. Katie, he said softly, are you sure about this? Once you change, there might be no going back. Katie smiled, and for a moment she looked like the 7-year-old girl she had been just hours before. I'm not scared, she said. Theros will help me. And together we're going to save everyone. The transformation was almost complete. Soon, Katie would be powerful enough to reach every controlled creature in the galaxy. But first they had to get this information to the authorities. The Shadow People's plan had to be stopped. Katie felt the change completing inside her mind. Her eyes now glowed with the same gentle blue light as Thyros's, and she could sense things across the galaxy that no human had ever felt before. The connection with Thyros had made her into something new, something that could understand all forms of life. I can feel them, Katie said, her voice carrying a strange echo. All the Cathara, all the other creatures the Shadow People have controlled, they're all connected somehow. Dr. Lisa Grant's scanner was showing readings that should have been impossible. Katie's brain was now processing information at speeds that far exceeded human capability, yet she still seemed to be herself. Katie, Dr. Grant said gently, how do you feel? Are you still you? Katie smiled, and despite her glowing eyes, she looked like the same caring child she had always been. I'm still me, but I'm also more now. I can understand things I never could before. Thyros watched her with deep concern and pride. You have sacrificed much to save my people, little guardian, but the greatest challenge still lies ahead. Jake. Morrison realized they needed to act quickly. We have to get this information to Earth Command immediately. If the Shadow People are planning a final attack, every world in the galaxy needs to know. But Katie shook her head. It's too late for warnings, Captain Morrison. The Shadow People know what happened here. They felt it when Thyros broke free. They're moving faster now. As if to prove her point, alarms suddenly began blaring throughout the colony. Ben Torres's voice crackled over the communication system. Captain, we're detecting multiple Kithara signatures approaching the system. At least 12 of them, maybe. More. Ryan Cross raised his weapon. They're coming to destroy the evidence, to kill Katie and recapture Thyros. No, Katie said calmly. They're coming because the Shadow People are afraid. For the first time in thousands of years, they've lost control of one of their weapons. They don't understand how it happened. Thyros stood to his full height, his massive frame filling the laboratory. Then we must show them that their control can be broken. We must free my brothers and sisters. Katie nodded and closed her eyes. The blue glow around her became brighter, and suddenly everyone in the room could feel something changing in the air. It was like electricity, but warm and gentle instead of harsh. I can reach them, Katie whispered. The other Kithara. They're fighting the Shadow People's control just like Thyros did. They want to be free. Through her enhanced abilities, Katie sent out a message to every approaching Kithara. It was not words or sounds, but pure emotion. Love, understanding, and the promise that they could remember who they truly were. Pete Williams watched the facility's sensors in amazement. Captain, the energy readings are off the charts. Katie is broadcasting some kind of signal across the entire star system. One by one, the approaching Kithara began to slow down. Their attack formations broke apart as they struggled with memories that were suddenly flooding back into their minds. The artificial rage that had driven them for centuries was cracking under the weight of their true personalities. It's working, Dr. Grant said, monitoring her scanner. The neural patterns of the approaching creatures are changing just like Tyros's did. But the effort was taking a terrible toll on Katie. Even with her new abilities, reaching so many minds across such a vast distance was almost impossible. Her small body began to shake with exhaustion. Thyros gently placed one massive claw on her shoulder. You cannot do this alone, little one. Let me help. The ancient creature opened his mind completely, allowing Katie to use his connection to the other Kithara. Together, their combined will reach across space, touching each controlled mind with the simple message that they were loved and remembered. Far away in the dark space between galaxies, the Shadow People felt their perfect weapons beginning to disobey. For the first time in their long existence, they experienced something they had never known before. Fear. Back on Kepler 442b, Alex and Maria Barnes had finally found their way to the research facility. They burst through the hole in the wall, just in time to see their daughter glowing with blue light while standing next to the most feared creature in the galaxy. Katie! Maria screamed, starting to run toward her. Wait, Jake said, gently catching her arm. She's safe. The creature is protecting her now. Alex stared in disbelief. That thing could kill her with one swipe of its claw. His name is Thyros, Katie said without opening her eyes. And he would never hurt me. He's my friend. One by one, the Kithara approaching the colony stopped their attack completely. The artificial control that had driven them was breaking down, replaced by memories of who they had been before the Shadow People captured them, the first freed. Kithara landed near the colony with a sound like distant thunder. It was smaller than Thyros, with lighter colored scales. When it spoke, its voice was filled with confusion and sorrow. What have I done? The creature said. How many innocents have I harmed while trapped in that nightmare? Thyros answered in the ancient Kithani language, words of comfort and forgiveness. Soon, more freed Kithara were landing around the colony. Each one was experiencing the same awakening, the same return to their true nature, The colonists who had been preparing to evacuate now watched in wonder as their greatest enemies transformed into protectors. Helen Carter stood beside Jake, hardly able to believe what she was seeing. "This changes everything," she said quietly. Katie finally opened her eyes, though the blue glow remained. "Not just the Kithara," she said. "I can feel other controlled creatures across the galaxy. They're all starting to remember. The Shadow People's control is breaking everywhere. Dr. Grant was recording everything on multiple devices. This is the greatest breakthrough in galactic history. We have to get this information to every world, every species." "The Shadow People won't give up easily," Theros warned. "They will try to recapture us or destroy us completely." "The war is not over," Katie nodded, but she was not afraid. "Then we'll be ready for them, all of us together. Humans, Kithara, and every other species they've hurt." Jake realized that Katie was right. This was not just about freeing the Kithara anymore. This was about uniting the entire galaxy against a common enemy. And at the center of it all was a 7-year-old girl who had become something unique in the universe. "What happens now?" Alex Barnes asked, still trying to understand what his daughter had become. Katie walked over to her parents and hugged them both. Despite her glowing eyes and new abilities, she was still their little girl. "Now we go home," she said simply. "And we tell everyone that the galaxy doesn't have to be afraid anymore. The Kithara are not our enemies. They never were." As the sun rose over Kepler 442b, a new age began. An age where understanding would triumph over fear, where compassion would defeat control, and where a human child's love would light the way to freedom for countless beings across the stars. The Shadow People had created the perfect weapons, but they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated the power of a pure heart to see through any deception and reach any soul, no matter how deeply buried. Katie Barnes had said, "Stay to the most feared creature in the galaxy." But in the end, she had given it something far more powerful than any command. She had given it hope.